Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Transplant Education Seminar on finding your donor tonight. For those attending for the first time, welcome, and we're so glad that you're here this evening. I know we have quite a few new families tonight, which is really exciting. For those that I have not yet met in person, but have talked to you on the phone, or maybe you're working with Darcy, I'm Lori Staggs, a Together Towards Transplant Program Coordinator with Off the List, and it's truly an honor to spend tonight with you all. If this is your first seminar, we'll go through finding your donor presentation. Then we'll have a question and answer with 2 guest speakers tonight. Then we'll break into our transplant circles. We know the transplant journey can feel overwhelming, emotional, and isolating at times. Tonight is designed to provide education, encouragement, practical tools, and most importantly, hope. Whether you are waiting on a kidney transplant, a kidney donor champion, family member, caregiver, or supporter, we hope you leave tonight feeling more informed, empowered, and connected. This time, if those people who have been transplanted want to go and mingle across the hall, John, do you mind leading everyone out? Yes, you do. This gives them the time to connect and talk about what's going on post-transplant. So tonight's seminar is really designed to walk you and your support team through a condensed version of our Together Towards Transplant program so that you leave tonight with a better understanding of how to share your need for a living kidney donor transplant in a way that feels comfortable, authentic, and effective. We hope tonight gives you the practical ideas, encouragement, and confidence as you continue navigating this journey. So one of the most important parts of finding a living kidney donor is consistently sharing your story and your need with others. Many people waiting for a transplant are uncomfortable bringing it up, and that's totally normal, but people can't support a need they don't know exists. We encourage you to look for organic opportunities throughout everyday conversations to share what you're going through. For example, if someone says, "How are you, Terry?" Don't just say I'm tired, but maybe respond with, "I'm tired because I'm searching for a living kidney donor." Stopping right there if you're saying you're searching for a living kidney donor is going to get that person to probably ask you, "What do you mean you're searching for a living kidney donor?" And that's an organic way to really share your story and educate others. Consistently sharing your story increases awareness, it expands your networks, and creates opportunity for connection that may not have happened otherwise. So, like I said, we're going to walk through the steps of our Together Towards Transplant program. This is where Darcy and I guide you through each actionable step of our program. So why identifying your kidney donor is so important. Before we actively start sharing your need for a living kidney donor, one of the first steps is identifying a kidney donor champion. A kidney donor champion is someone who will help advocate for you, help spread awareness, and support you throughout the process of sharing your story and need with others. This role is especially important because asking for help can feel extremely difficult and uncomfortable for many people on the transplant journey. Many patients are also balancing fatigue, medical appointments, dialysis, and the emotional stress that comes with kidney failure. Having someone who can help carry part of that responsibility can make a significant difference. So what is an ideal kidney donor champion? An ideal kidney donor champion is typically a family member or close friend who is a positive person, determined, comfortable talking with others, and willing to help share your story and need for the 100,000 people who are waiting on a life-saving kidney transplant. Most importantly, this should be someone who genuinely believes in supporting you and is willing to help keep your story visible and active. We also encourage families to choose someone other than the primary caregiver for this role whenever possible. Because the primary caregivers already have so much going on. They have a tremendous amount on their plate. They're help coordinating appointments, supporting nutritional needs, providing emotional support, and helping navigate the day-to-day challenges. That role alone is incredibly important, and we don't want our caregivers to become overwhelmed trying to carry both responsibilities at the same time. So our next step is about creating your brand. Your brand becomes a consistent message tied to your transplant journey, and it's something that'll appear across all of your transplant marketing materials and outreach materials. Think about how companies create campaigns around new products. They use consistent wording and messaging and visuals so people begin to recognize and remember it. In this situation, you and your story are the focus of the campaign. We encourage families to keep their brand name short, simple, and easy to remember. Ideally about 3 words. Shorter brand names are easier to read on a yard sign and on social media graphics and t-shirts, card decals, and other material. We want the focus to be on positive outcomes, using wording such as life, living hope, second chance, donate. This goal is to create a brand name that is positive and memorable and easy for others to rally around. Once your brand is created, we'll use it consistently throughout all our marketing efforts to help build recognition and awareness of your story. So the next step is where we start writing your story. We've created 6 generalized questions that help families focus on key areas, including why you're on the transplant list, what does life currently look like for you when living with kidney disease, and what could life look like after receiving that transplant? These questions help us better understand your journey so we can help create a story that is personal, authentic, and impactful. Many people believe they cannot donate because their blood type does not match the recipient's blood type. But that's often not the case because of the paired exchange program. So our goal is for someone to read your story, feel compelled to help, and contact the transplant center to begin the process for testing. We don't want someone to read your story and see your blood type on that story and think, that's a shame, I wish I could help them. And then think that they can't help because they're not aware of the paired exchange program. In many cases, they can still help because of that paired exchange program. That's why we intentionally do not include blood type in your story or on printed marketing materials. We also understand that talking about yourself and sharing your need can feel uncomfortable. Because of that, we ask you to ask your friends, your family members, and your kidney donor champions to help you when answering these questions. Remember, you can use bullet points to answer your questions. We're not here to grade it. We just want the information about you so that we can write the most authentic and compelling story and help share your struggles so that somebody will call the transplant center on your behalf. Once you've answered the questions, like I said, off the list writes the story for you. We take those answers and turn them into a story that not only shares who you are, but also includes important educational information about the testing process for potential donors. We include things such as the testing process is confidential. The recipient's insurance covers testing and surgery costs. The benefits of a living kidney donor transplant and typically the recovery time are all part of your story. Finally, we always end the story with a clear call to action so readers know what to do after they've read your story. If they feel compelled to learn more or to see if they may be a potential donor, we want them to have that information right and readily available as they've read your story. We want to make it as easy as possible for someone to take the next steps. So the purpose of the Who Do You Know exercise is to begin identifying people within the circles of your life. These networks become the foundation of how we share your need for a living kidney donor transplant. The goal of this exercise is to not identify who we think will be a donor. Instead, it's about identifying people who we think can help expand awareness of your story and connect you to additional networks. We encourage families to try not to complete this exercise all at once because it can be overwhelming. But creating this list does take time, and often you'll continue to think of more people as time goes on, and that's perfect. You may have additional people in the groups, organizations, former or current coworkers, clubs, and community connections as you move through the process. We also encourage you not to make assumptions about who may or may not be willing to help. We don't want you to say, just because this person has X, Y, and Z going on, I know they're too busy, they're not going to help. No, write their name down. Let's give them the opportunity to be a blessing to you and help you share your story. Because sometimes the people you least expect become some of your biggest supporters and strongest advocates. This is also a great opportunity to help you brainstorm connections and relationships that you may not immediately think of outside about yourselves. Most importantly, do not become discouraged. If your list feels small, that's okay because networks grow over time and every connection has the potential to help increase and expand the reach of your story.
Yeah, we lost our screen.
This is going to become real boring if I have to stand up here and lecture the whole time and you have nothing to look at. But we're going to keep going on and seeing if we can talk about these steps. I do want to share with you guys, I forgot to share, some of these steps you may not have reached yet, and that's quite okay in your transplant journey with us. You'll get there, and this is just a foreshadow of what is to come. So next we would be talking about our marketing 101 strategies. So these are our core marketing strategies we use throughout our Together Towards Transplant program. They are consistency, building networks, multiple touches, and diversified marketing. While every individual's journey is unique, these principles consistently help individuals increase awareness and successfully share their need for a living kidney donor transplant. We didn't invent these marketing 101 strategies. Neither Darcy nor I sat down and said, hey, let's use these strategies. No, these came from billion-dollar companies such as like Procter & Gamble. If Procter & Gamble is going to use these strategies to get us to buy their toilet paper, we're going to use them to get somebody to donate a kidney to you. So the first strategy is consistency. Hands down, the more consistent you are with sharing your story, typically the more successful you are. Consistency doesn't mean spending hours every day focusing on transplant outreach. It simply means that you're doing something every day to keep your story visible. If you and your kidney donor champion are doing something every day, whether it's just wearing a t-shirt that day, sending out a text message, a post on social media, that's keeping your story alive and visible to the community. We're not asking you to do something monumental. If you want to, by gosh, do it. But every small task leads to a greater outcome. The second strategy is building networks. This is the purpose behind the Who Do You Know exercise. We want you to start sharing within your networks. You share your story there, and our hope is that when you share it with that person, they continue to share it, to have that ripple effect, and to see the growth of your story. It just continues to keep growing. Our third strategy is multiple touches. Many people are not going to react the first time they see a post or a yard sign or hear about your need for a living kidney donor. It often takes 7 to 10 touches for someone to react and feel prompted to make that initial call to the transplant center. And those touches don't all have to come in the same form. They can come from a social media post, a news story, a yard sign, a church bulletin, a conversation with a friend. It doesn't even have to be that, Terry, you're sitting in front of me, so I'm going to pick on you tonight. It doesn't have to be Terry's news story that gets them to think about John. You know, it can be just somebody's talking about kidney transplant triggers. Wait a minute, I'm following Terry's story online. He's still waiting for a kidney. That's a multiple touch. Those multiple touches serve as a reminder of your need and keep your story present in people's minds. The final strategy we focus on is diversified marketing. And simply put, we don't put all our eggs into one basket. We don't rely strictly on social media or just on printed materials. Instead, we use a variety of outreach methods and marketing tools to help ensure we're connecting with as many people and as many networks as possible. The more diversified the outreach, the greater opportunity to increase awareness and reach potential donors. And I keep looking back because I'm used to the screen moving, so I apologize. So the next step of our Together Towards Transplant program is Let's Get Digital. This step focuses on helping individuals and their team expand their outreach digitally. One of the tools we use is QR codes as a simple and effective way to help share your story and connect people directly to your story. So we create the QR code, and if somebody's not familiar with QR codes, they're scannable patterns or barcodes that can contain different information such as website links, social media pages, videos, or contact information. We use those so if somebody scans John's QR code, it's going to take them to his Facebook page where they can read his story. It's just immediate access to information without having to search for it themselves. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes when you type in Google, you get a whole lot of things that you're not looking for. Well, at least I do. We also talk with individuals and families about creating websites. While websites can be a great resource, many of our families opt not to do it because that's another platform that's requiring you to go out and update it frequently. Make sure your story is accurate, updating what's going on, making sure photos are on there so people can understand who you are and your need. That becomes a burden to a lot of our families because of everything they have going on. But no matter what digital tools you choose to use, the most important thing is making sure you're consistently sharing what you create so your story continues reaching new people and new networks. So this is where we're going to talk about capturing the power of social media. This step focuses strictly, like I said, social media, your TikTok, your Facebook, your Instagrams. Add off the list, we create a separate Facebook page using your brand name that you created. So your story's not, you can share it on your everyday page, but we have a page dedicated strictly to your kidney journey. Having that dedicated page helps keep your kidney journey related topics up to date. We put photos on there, videos, and educational information all in one space. So it makes it really easy for people to follow, share, and support your journey. We can even assist with posting the content on your behalf. We typically recommend posting about 3 to 4 times a week on Facebook because It keeps your story visible because of the algorithms. We can't guarantee how those algorithms run, but the more we post, the more frequent people are going to see it on their newsfeed. When off the list is helping manage content, we still encourage you to go out there and personally post something once a week, maybe every couple of weeks, because we're not with you every week. I wish we could be, but we just can't be. And you guys being vulnerable and sharing what's going on in your everyday life helps people understand what you're going through. And if you, whether it's you've had 3 or 4 great days, you had the energy to go to a Reds game, or you know what, dialysis just exhausted you. People want to know that because that's real life. We also encourage families to create reels, the short little 30-second videos. People watch those more and more, and they catch people's attention versus just a post with strictly wording. So when you're posting, try to put a picture with each post because people will stop because there's a picture associated with that post rather than just scrolling by it. Most importantly though, when you're posting, every post should have a clear call to action. We never want someone to feel moved by your story or your post, but not know what to do next. So including the Transplant Contact Center information on post helps direct interested individuals towards the next step if they feel compelled to learn more or begin the donor evaluation process. Avery, you want to come up and talk about, oh, you did get it back. I was just going to jokingly say, do you want to come up and talk about the social media that she has it back?
Someone came in and saved us.
I did keep looking, you're right, Terry.
Hi, everybody. I'm Avery. Lori ran you through our pointers for social media. I'm going to run you through the process of how we can help, what we recommend, just a couple little things like that. Before I do that, I want to introduce Amy. She is the second member of our social media team. So when you get to this step, you'll be working with both of us in some capacity. So once Darcy or Lori send you to us, you'll be connected to us in an email. We will start this process. We'll walk you through everything. Everything will be logged by email. We can do Zoom calls, we can do phone calls, anything that'll make your life easier during this, we're all in for it. First step is signing the social media agreement. This will be, it's like a document. Yeah, so it's an e-doc that you sign. It gets automatically sent back to Darcy and Lori. They send it to us. And one of the questions on that agreement is your login information for your Facebook, your Instagram, and then we can also do like Nextdoor, things like that. If you don't have a Facebook or an Instagram, we can get those set up for you too. We started people from step 1 all the way up, literally created their personal pages for them to add these campaign pages to. I've even added a couple just to my meta to make it easier on everyone. We're very flexible with how we do this. So once login is approved, or once we have your login information, we'll do login approval. So I will send you an email basically just asking to set up a time where we're both available. Login approval, I'm not going to lie, is the trickiest step for this whole process for everyone. Facebook and Instagram are really secure, which is great. Just not necessarily for this particular step. Usually what this entails is once we set up a time, I will send you a text to say, hey, I'm logging in. Facebook is going to say, well, that's not who's supposed to be logging in. And it'll send you a code. Or it will send a notification to one of your devices to say, yes, it's me. If you get that, that's a great step. That's an easy step. That's the step we want. The code can be a little problematic. We worked through it. Basically, with that, Meta, Facebook will send you a code. You have to send it back to us. It'll probably say, no, that's not you a couple times, but we always get to the end. It always works. We get through it. Once login approval is done, we're cruising. We're good to go. The hard part's over. We will then create what's called your campaign page. So Lori mentioned your brand name, writing your story. That is all, it's for all your marketing materials, especially social media. Your campaign page will be titled with your brand name. So it could be John's Kidney Quest, whatever that brand name is that you decided on, that's what this page will be called. We'll also put your story up there. We add your coordinator information to the about page or to the about section so that people know exactly who they need to contact when they hit your page. And then we also do the same thing for Instagram. We do next door. If you want to get into anything else, bring it up to us. We're more than willing to work through it with you. Once the page is built, we send it back to your Together Toward Transplant coordinator. They approve it. They say it looks good to go. We'll then get pictures from you to post. We'll create a custom cover photo for your page. We'll get your profile pictures in there. Any details we'll take care of. Once your coordinator approves, like I said, we'll email you again with next steps, asking if we're posting for you, if you're going to be taking care of posting. It's going to be a mix. I will say probably about 90% of the families we work with, they just want us to take care of the posting, which is great. It's one less thing you have to worry about. It's what Amy and I are here for. So let us take that weight off your shoulders. We have a social media guide that has a ton of captions, over 100 captions. All you've got to do is send us the pictures. It can be pictures of you with friends, you with family, hobbies, pets, anything really. One thing we've really started pushing for recently is pictures of you when you're not feeling so great, because that's the reality of kidney disease and needing a transplant. So pictures of you exhausted on the couch after dialysis, you getting hooked up for dialysis, your supplies, and then we can add captions like, I spent 5 hours at the clinic today, I'm exhausted, I'll be in bed until the end of the day tomorrow. So we can really make that push for people to know, hey, like this is urgent, this is important, we want that to be portrayed. Normal pictures are great, you at your house, you with friends, you with family, like I said, but we've got to mix in some of that reality here and there. And it's hard to be vulnerable, but I promise you it will be worth it. What else? When we send you this email for pictures, we typically schedule about a month at a time. So Meta has a planner that we really utilize. So 1 month's worth of pictures is about 16. I know it's a lot. It's worth it though, I promise. And what Amy and I recommend is that anytime you take a new picture or you've got new pictures, just send them to us while you're thinking about it. If it's a holiday, like say you just spent Christmas with your family, I don't care if it is Christmas. Send us the pictures just so we have them. It doesn't bother us. And then we can get those worked into the cycle. So yeah, that's yes. So after your pages are built, you'll get another email from us that has pre-made messaging for you to promote the page. So the pages are great once they're built, but they're not really going to do much unless we bring people to them. So that's why that who do you know exercise is really, really important. So we have a couple of messages on that email that you can literally just copy and paste. Hi, it's got your name. I'm looking for a living kidney donor. I have kidney disease. Please follow and like my page to learn more. And within that message, there's a link to your page that will take people right to it. And that way they know exactly what they're looking for or looking at. Yeah. Any questions with social media? I know there's so much information I can just have. Yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So that's how I connected years ago with quality people.
Yeah, that's great.
Is that appropriate? Because I still get notifications, my name popped up on all these searches. Email me about, but it's LinkedIn an appropriate platform.
I think it's really what you're comfortable with. So if you're comfortable with LinkedIn, let's do it. If you're not and you want to use something more like Facebook and Instagram, we can always customize a message for you to post on LinkedIn with a link to Facebook, Instagram, whatever, that will direct people right to it. Does that help at all? Okay. Yeah, but LinkedIn absolutely can be used. To share.
LinkedIn definitely started off more business-wise at first, but then when COVID hit, you saw a lot more of the personal aspect coming in to LinkedIn. So that's a fine platform to use.
Yeah.
You can schedule posting.
Any sort of social media that you want to use, even if we haven't done a page on it before, we're more than willing to work and get that going for you. So it's wherever your community is, that's where we want you to be. All right. And Amy and I will be around if you have any other questions, come find us.
So sending snail mail. This focuses on our snail mail as another way to personally share your story with those closest to you. Even in today's digital world, mail still gets open. I don't know about you, but I'm really excited when I get a letter or a card, something that's not a bill, I will open it gladly. But studies honestly show that 90% of mail still gets open, and people typically keep their mail around for about 17 days. So that means your story is going to be read and it will remain visible much longer than a quick social media post. One of the reasons this step can be so effective is that because it allows families to personally connect with relatives again, friends, coworkers, neighbors, and other close connections in a more meaningful and intentional way. Many families use the story that we've written and handwrite those letters to families. Off the List will also provide you with letters that are typed. You can print out and take them to the post office and mail them. I always say if you mail out Christmas card letters, pull out that list of who you send a Christmas card to and send them a letter, letting them know what's going on with you. If you have children or grandchildren and they're at an age appropriate where they can write or tell you what their mom or dad or grandparent means to them, that moves mountains because people want those individuals who children look up to as role models to be around for a while. Another impactful idea is including a letter from someone who's gone through the donor testing process and can tell a person about that process, because a lot of times people don't know what all the testing process includes. Who better to hear it from than someone that's been through the process? We have tons of people here at Off the List that have gone through testing process that are living donors. So if you guys want a letter like that, let us know and we can make sure that connection happens. Just like with all outreach methods, the goal is really to keep increasing awareness and creating connection, helping more people understand your story and need for a living kidney donor. We'll put the Facebook link and the QR code in that letter as well. Or if you're on Instagram or LinkedIn, whatever social media platform you use, we'll include that in the letter so the recipient of that letter knows how to follow your story. Putting it in print. This is where everybody gets really excited. These are materials such as, you can see, t-shirts, flyers, car decals, yard signs. Printed materials are just another way to increase visibility and continue expanding awareness of your need for a living kidney donor transplant. One of the biggest benefits of printed outreach is that it allows your story to be seen by people outside of your networks, outside of social media. Someone may see your yard sign while driving through your neighborhood, notice a car decal in a parking lot, or read a flyer hanging in a local business or community space. These materials help create additional opportunities for people to become aware of your story in everyday situations. Printed materials also support the multiple touch marketing strategy discussed earlier. A person may first hear about your story online and then later see a t-shirt at the zoo or at a community event or a yard sign near your home. Each exposure reinforces awareness and helps keep your story front of mind. These materials help keep your need visible in the community and create more opportunities for conversations, connection, support, and possible donors. This is an example of a social media post. We love to share this one because this shows how dramatically the expand of one person posting something can happen. So in this situation, a person was simply driving down the road when they saw a car decal sharing someone's need for a living kidney donor transplant. Even though the person did not know the person driving this vehicle, they still captured a picture and felt compelled to share it on TikTok. This single act resulted in over 260,000 views 33,000 likes, and over 200 comments. One person took, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes to share this car decal, and look how many people it reached. And that's people all over. It doesn't have to be in the Cincinnati area, the Dayton area, Columbus. This reached everywhere. This is exactly why we emphasize consistency, visibility, and diversified outreach throughout this program, because you never know who may see your story, feel connected to it, and decide to share it within their own networks. Social media can take one small interaction and amplify it far beyond your immediate circle, creating opportunities and awareness that just may never have even happened otherwise. So step 9 focuses on email and messaging as another way to personally and directly share your story with others. When using email or messenger, we encourage families to keep the message simple, concise, and easy to read while always including that clear call to action. The goal is not to overwhelm people with too much information, but rather create awareness and provide an easy next step for someone who may feel compelled to learn more. We encourage you to include the link to your story whenever possible. You can embed the QR code or attach it to your email. Or if you're using a website that's not social media, you can include that as well in your email. And it's hyperlinked, so it really allows your reader to learn more about your transplant journey and access the transplant center contact information. Another important part of this step is identifying the different groups and communities within your life that may help you share your story. This may include alumni groups, churches, volunteer organizations, workers, past, present, and social clubs. Many individuals and families are surprised by how quickly their story can spread once it reaches multiple groups and networks. Just like the other marketing strategies we've discussed, the purpose is to continue building awareness, expanding outreach, and creating opportunities for your story to connect with the right person. Making a move in mass media. It's finding the larger opportunities to increase awareness of your story and need for a living kidney donor transplant. By this point in the program, individuals in the support and their support teams typically have already built a strong foundation through their storytelling, their individual networks, social media, and printed outreach. Mass media helps expand the visibility even further into the broader community. We have opportunities to place signs on the metro buses downtown. We have radio and television connections. During the holiday season, the busiest time of the year, we have the ability at CBG and Dayton airports to put a quick, almost like a billboard of your story with the QR code, transplant center information on each luggage carousel. So it may not even be somebody you know who sees the person's story. I remember coming home from a trip for my daughters in Florida, and I wasn't with off the list at the time, but knew about them and saw somebody sign there. I quickly took a picture and said, "Oh my gosh, Darcy, this is so exciting that you guys have expanded out to the CBG airport." And people were like looking at me like, "What is this girl taking a picture of?" So that brought even more eyes to that carousel. So mass media outreach also continues supporting multiple touch marketing strategy. Like we discussed earlier, a person may first see your social media post, later hear a story about kidney donation. Like I said, it may not even be related to you, but it's going to make somebody think about, wait a minute, I'm still following that page. That person still needs a kidney. Why not just call the transplant center? See if I can be their possible donor. We don't know what it takes and what method it uses that person to create them to call the transplant center. So each additional exposure reinforces awareness, increases the likelihood that someone may feel compelled to take action or share your story with others. Step 11 is about getting creative. It's thinking outside of the box. when it comes to sharing your need for a living kidney donor transplant. This step encourages families to look at different communities, the activities going on, and environments they are already connected to and consider different ways to share their story. For example, I know this part of the year, a lot of people are going to the ballpark with the kiddos or the soccer fields. Perfect opportunity to have a banner. I saw somebody had created one of the sun tents and had their brand name across that. Just another way to grab somebody's attention and see your story. It's about keeping everything visible. Church festivals. There's a lot of those taking place in the summer. Maybe you can hang a flyer or a banner there. It's just about really getting the word out there and not your traditional everyday ways. Theater and show programs, putting something in their bulletins, religious bulletins and prayer chains, that brings awareness to your story. So just really thinking outside the box and getting creative on different ways to connect people with your story. So final thoughts. So as we wrap up tonight's presentation, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts and encouragement as you continue your transplant journey. One of the most important things is to remember this process, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Finding a living donor often takes time, takes consistency, patience, and continued effort. So don't become discouraged if things don't happen immediately. We encourage you and your support team to focus on doing one thing every day to share your story. Some days, like I said, that may be a social media post, sharing a flyer, sending a message, wearing a t-shirt, or simply having a conversation with someone about your need. Small, consistent actions over time create momentum and continue to expand awareness. Again, don't make assumptions that somebody may not be willing to help you. Many people want to help and they don't know how to help. Continue allowing others the opportunity to hear your story and decide for themselves how they may be able to support you. Most importantly, look around in this room. You're not alone on this journey. Lean on your family, your friends, your kidney donor champions, your support systems for help along the way. Lean on myself, Darcy, Amy, and Avery. We're all here to help walk alongside of you and encourage you and help guide you through each step of the process. So by now, you guys might be tired of hearing me speak. So I'm going to bring up our two guests tonight. John Willis, who is a kidney donor recipient of a living donor. And he also runs our OTL kidney crew and does a lot for our Transplant PALS program. And his donor is also here, Lindsay Conger. So I'm going to invite you guys to come up. They're going to share their stories, and then we're going to open it to questions and answers, whether it's about anything I covered, whether it's about John and Lindsay's story. Just happy to have you guys tonight.
Thanks.
You're welcome. We all come on.
Yeah. So hi, I'm John. I guess I'm going to start out here with one thing, just so you know, like today, May 7th, is something that means something to us, because exactly 2 years ago, Lindsay donated her kidney to me on that day. So like exactly like going, way back. So, but anyways, it's made such an impact on my life that I don't even have words of how to say thank you, but we had to decide we're gonna kind of tell our story kind of chronologically a little bit, so we're gonna maybe pass the mic back and forth a little bit. But I just want to start by talking about like what what was going on with my kidneys and kind of what sort of led up to that. So I was I guess, I was born with like, I had a thing they called reflex nephropathy. And so kind of what that is, I don't know if anybody else knows what that is, but that was what was going on with my kidneys. But it's basically, if you think like, here's your kidneys, like stuff is only supposed to flow one way, not back this way. And so I guess because of sort of a minor like birth defect kind of thing you might call it, that I had basically like, I would call it like a faulty backflow prevent. So it allowed stuff to flow back up in there. And so I think, and whenever that would happen, it caused a little bit of damage to my kidneys. But over, a lifetime, that added up to like really like major severe damage to my kidneys, by the time I reached, my fifties and stuff, so, it got pretty bad. But, and the first time I got a clue about this was, I was actually in my twenties. I came down with like a kidney infection. It was pretty severe. I was in the hospital for like a week, and it was pretty shocking because like I didn't know what it was, and it took the people in the hospital like a couple of days, I think, to figure out what was even going on with me. I just knew I was like, I was not feeling well at all. But anyways, they finally figured out what it was. It was like this infection. They started on antibiotics, and I think I ended up having to stay on antibiotics for like I don't know, a month or 6 weeks or something like that. My wife Chris is sitting right over there, and so she was with me then, so she remembers that. That was not fun. Yeah. But anyways, so I got over that, and after, a few weeks, I felt fine. Everything was fine, at least that's what I wanted to believe, but anyways, I was able to, kind of continue on living, live a pretty normal life at that age. But I kind of always knew in the back of my head, there was something wrong. But then when I got, kind of like into my early 40s, I started having some more signs creeping back in and kind of slapping me in the face, saying like, hey, you're not really fine. I was having headaches, just tired. And then I remember one point I started having like this pain in my lower back. It started to remind me of like what it was like when I had that kidney infection. So I was at that point, I was like, I gotta do something about this. So I made an appointment at Kidney and Hypertension Center and had an appointment with Dr. Stott there, who's now been my nephrologist for like 20 plus years. And so, I started taking it a little bit more seriously at that point, and started learning, I learned a lot from him about what was going on, kind of what to expect. And this also, one of the important things, at least I think, was that, I started learning about the relationship of kidney function and blood pressure. And my blood pressure was kind of out of control. And he had me start taking blood pressure medication. And so I was on it for like 20 years. I kind of believe that really helped kind of stabilize things for me for, a pretty long time, and like, my kidney function was still continuing to decline, but at kind of a slow rate. And so, I was able to sort of continue on living a pretty normal life for a good amount of time. And then it was like, I think 2022, things kind of accelerated in decline, which started getting worse, a little bit more quickly. And I think it was January 2023 when I had an appointment with Dr. Stott. That's where he told me that like, my GFR kind of dipped below 20, and he said like, John, it's time to, start looking into getting a kidney transplant. And he said, you could probably hang out for another year or so like this, but if you do, we're going to be having the same conversation, and you're going to be on dialysis. So I decided to kind of do what he said, start looking into the whole transplant. And the last thing I wanted to mention, like while I was at that appointment, I was sitting out in the waiting room waiting for my turn, and on a little table there was a little stack of flyers there, and I picked one up and looked at it and said it was off the list. I'm like, what's this about? And so, anyways, that's how I found out about off the list. It was really an important thing to me because I learned about it then, and then I found out their very next meeting was the next night. So I just showed up here. And so, anyways, off the list was really impactful to me and made a big difference for me.
So I don't enter the story until October of 2023, but so I didn't know John before donating. I didn't know his story, and I didn't actually know a lot of that information until right now. But I want to back up just a few months to really share what led me to ultimately donating. And please bear with me because I'm going to speak about my dad who passed away 3 years ago this month, and I still get pretty emotional talking about him, but I just think it's so important to share where I was coming from so you guys can have that context too. So my dad passed away from complications of kidney cancer. He was only 68 years old. He had just retired the year before, and he had worked hard his whole life, and he worked really hard to really beat his disease too. But his cancer was very, very aggressive. It spread to other places in his body, and he was never a candidate for transplants. So we never discussed that. It was never part of his treatment plan. We never talked about it with his care team. So I just wanted to give that context that, after his death, I didn't seek out to be a kidney donor. It wasn't like I wasn't a match for my dad, so I wanted to find someone that I could help in their life. It just really didn't cross my mind at all. So fast forward to October of 2023, I was in an all-day meeting at work, and we had taken a lunch break. So I was just scrolling Facebook, and I see a post from John, and he had posted in a community Facebook page that I belong to. We both live on the east side of town. We didn't know that at this right now. And so much of what John said in his off the list posts, I connected with. It reminded me so much of my dad. I think John mentioned like loving to hike and be outside and do yard work, and those are all things that my dad also really enjoyed. So, and some of this I can't really explain very well. It was really just a feeling I had. So in that moment, I said to myself, I'm going to donate a kidney to John. So the first thing I did was text my husband Jason, who's here with me, and I think I said something like, "Hey, I'm going to donate a kidney," and I think he's like, "Can you call me, please?" And that really started our journey of talking about this. That fall, I started the preliminary, testing phase with Christ. We decided not to tell my family yet because we were still in that ugly phase of grief where it was just really hard for us. But that also included not telling our two sons. At the time we had a sophomore in high school and a first grader. And we just didn't want to cause anyone any emotional distress if this wasn't going to work out. But this is the part I can't explain. I knew it was going to work out somehow. So fast forward to January of 2024, a lot of testing. We had an all-day testing day at Christ, and then we were really just waiting to see if we were going to be confirmed an official match. And then finally I got the information that we were. I don't know if they shared that with you yet. So we found out pretty quickly, and I told Christ that I needed a couple of weeks because now I had to tell my family. My boys were very, very on board with it, but trying to explain to a first grader what it means to donate a kidney, he had a lot of questions. But they were very supportive, as was Jason. I often joke that Jason needs a lot of information to process things and make decisions, and that's where I really valued off the list and Christ. So we had a lot of information at our disposal that I could really share with Jason and ultimately with my family. And I think that was a big piece too, that I was able to share John's story with them too, which was really helpful for them. Because I'll tell you, my family was very upset with me. My mom was very upset. I have an older sister, and being a little sister, she was like, "What are you doing?" And I think it's because there was a lot of fear associated with it. I think, and I don't know a lot about kidney donation, but I think it used to be a lot harder for donors to donate than it is now. So they just really had a lot of fear with me making this decision. But I also wanted to share that the year after my dad's death, we were at church a lot. Jason is Catholic. We decided to raise Leo, our first grader at the time, Catholic. I grew up in a Presbyterian church. So I often joke that I was learning how to be Catholic too with our first grader, but we were there a lot. And I found a lot of peace at church during that time. And I used a lot of that time, like when we were in prayer, to ask for just peace. And after we got the official word that, John and I were a match, and my family was processing the information, one Sunday, I remember praying, please just give me peace that my family will be okay with this decision. And as we're leaving church that Sunday, we go to Guardian Angels. If anybody's familiar with that, there's a tiny residential road off of the back parking lot. It's quite a traffic jam when you're trying to leave. But there's probably 5 or 6 houses that you can see on that road. So we're in this traffic jam trying to get back to Beachmont Avenue, and I look up, and there's one of John's yard signs in a yard right behind our church. And I said, Jason, it's literally a sign. He said, I actually saw that last week. And I was like, well, I saw it when I needed to see it. So it really just, like solidified that my family would be okay with this. And they really were. They are amazing. I think they were just very, fearful that something would happen, but there's so much information that I was able to share with them. I really wish I could have connected with John and Chris to give them some peace that like I was all in. I was not going to back out. I really only would have said no to this if Jason or my mom would have said, please don't do this, but they didn't. And Jason actually said like he knew I was going to say yes when I sent him that text in October. So I really couldn't have done it without Jason, so I just give him so much credit. He's been with me like every step of this. I was actually able to set the date for the surgery, and I think originally it was mid-May. Then they actually bumped it up earlier in the month, which I was really happy about because my dad passed away on May 24th. So I wanted to be pretty well into recovery. Especially on the first anniversary of his death, where my family wasn't worried that like I couldn't get off the couch or I couldn't like participate in whatever we decided to do. So yeah, and Jason will tell you too, like when we were driving to Christ that morning for surgery, he was like, I've never seen someone happier to go into surgery in my whole life. And I think from my perspective, it was really just I wanted to get the surgery over with. Because I wanted my family to know I was going to be okay. So I don't know if you want to talk about surgery day or how you felt leading up to the.
Sure. Yeah, and by the way, Jason, I didn't say thank you. I said thank you, but thank you to you too, and your family too. I owe you guys all that. Thanks. So yeah, the next part I was going to talk about the part being on the list. Day of the surgery, first few days, so after I got that news from Dr. Sajad, I had to, start the testing process, which you guys are all familiar with, so I don't go into detail on that, but yeah, I had to do that. And, that took a few months to get through all of that, but I think it was by, by the end of August of 2023, or beginning of September, something like that, I was officially on the list. And, so I had been going to off the list meetings kind of the whole time, since then. And so I really, after I was officially on the list, I really launched into actually starting to share my story, doing like all the stuff that Off the List recommends. I had a Facebook page, the yard signs, bumper stickers. They had arranged for me to have like these digital billboards at CBG Airport over the holiday season. Which is pretty impactful. So I could try to do all those things. One of the things that was hard for me sharing wise was like at work for some reason. I was really like reluctant to talk to people, that would work about it. And some other people I've talked to found, other people kind of feel the same way. But I talked to the CEO of our company about this, and he goes, well, we have like a company lunch this Thursday. Why don't you just get up and just tell everybody about it and tell them, what they could do maybe to help you. So I did it, which is kind of a big hurdle for me to get with it. But then afterwards, I was really surprised at kind of like the outpouring of support that I I got from people at work. It's like, wow, and people that I might not even expected it from. So anyways, like after that, then I was like over it. It's like, okay, now I can tell anybody about this. So that's kind of important milestone for me a little bit. But then the other thing I want to bring up, maybe some of the other people in the room like have this too, but one day Darcy calls me and she goes, do you want to share your story on TV? And I'm like, what? And she goes, well, Liz Bonus does this like special show called What's Happening in Health. And she like, she'll bring people on that are needing a kidney transplant and interview them. So I was like, it did. But anyways, yeah, I think probably everybody knows Liz Bonus just passed away like last week. So that was really a bummer. Like, I got to meet her a couple of times, afterwards, besides the interview after it had like some of the off the list things. And yeah, she just seemed really nice. And everything she did was just trying to help people. So yeah, I was really bummed out. I know Darcy was really upset about that too. I don't know. I just want to mention that. But anyways, waiting on the list. I'm on the list, and like as you guys know, when you're on the list, you're basically on the list for deceased donor kidney. You just have so much uncertainty. Like the thought of like getting a call at like midnight saying drop everything or wake up and get in here always freaked me out. But that's not what happened in my case. But I know some people that is what they experience. But just a lot of uncertainty. My visits to Dr. Sajad became more and more frequent. I was used to be, like twice a year, then it was 3 times a year. Like towards the last, last year, a few months, it was like almost like be like every 3 weeks I was going. Things were getting really dicey, But anyways, yeah, very anxious time. And the other thing, like the donor coordinators are not allowed to tell you anything. So it's like you don't have any information about like what might be going on. I had a few clues from people that I knew that said to me, like, John, I'm gonna, get tested and see if I can donate a kidney for you. Some of the people I just never heard from again, but a few people, that I know, like got back to me. It's like, John, I did it and I disqualified for, one reason or other. One person in particular was like very upset to tell me this, so it was kind of moving to, just hear them say that to me, But, I definitely appreciate all the people that tried. I mean, there's, quite a few that I heard from, that tried, but, anyways, I have here the call. So I finally got the call that I was waiting for. I think it was March. March is when I think I remember that I got the call. It was like, I don't know, like the middle of March. I was at work. I get this phone call from Emily Rapine, who's my transplant coordinator at Christ. And she says, we have an approved donor for you. And the date is set March 14th. And so Darcy's not here, but I know if I didn't tell this part of the story, Darcy would have jumped up and told him anyways. But anyway, so I'm on this call and I'm like, well, okay, let me get back to you. I said something like that, and I immediately called Chris, talked to her, and then I think I called Darcy like right after that. But basically, the message I got from both of them was, "Get your dumb ass back on the phone." Yes. So that's what I did. So, but yeah, I clearly wasn't thinking clearly, I guess. But anyways, as Lindsay mentioned too, I think the date was written except for May 14th, but then a couple weeks later, they called me and said, we're going to have to change the date on this. And my first thought was like, oh, great, this is like medical stuff. It's probably going to be like 6 months later or something like that. But no, it was actually a week earlier. So I was like, okay, that's good. But then the other important part about that call is they told me that the donor wished to remain anonymous. So that just started Chris and I on like a few months long journey of speculating and hypothesizing on who it would be. And like we just felt sure it was like somebody we knew, a relative, maybe one of our kids, we just had all these theories going on for like weeks and stuff like that. So yeah, so that was a big topic discussion with us. But anyway, so from there then now I was waiting for the day of the surgery. So it was another kind of anxious time for me. Like I never had any kind of surgery remotely of that nature. So I was a little anxious about it. And and we just talked all the time about who couldn't speak. But anyway, so the day up, somehow, they got me there early. I think it was 5:30, if I'm getting here, 7:30 or something, super early. But anyways, I got there the day of, I don't know, somehow I felt calmer than maybe I thought that I would have. And the good thing to Christ too, like we get there and it's like there's kind of no waiting around. It's just like, okay, let's go, let's get things prepped. And like next thing I knew, it's like, okay, it's go time. And then the next thing I know, like I mentioned earlier, I wake up in the ICU going like, wow, what just happened? But then like the other thing I remember, I think it was, I don't know if it was, later, but maybe it was the next day. I started getting the results back through my chart thing of the first blood test that they did afterwards. And my GFR was 85. And I just couldn't believe it. It was like my GFR probably wasn't that level since I was like in my teens or something like that, but I was like so happy about that, and so at that point I was like, I don't care how much this hurts, like this is worth it. And I could also somehow tell like it different. I could just tell something was different. I felt different, it's kind of hard, it's hard to describe at that point. But yeah, I could tell something good had happened. But yeah. But anyways, I was there. I think they told me to expect probably 4 to 5 days if everything went fine. I think I was discharged like 4.5 days later. So like it was Saturday morning. Yeah, we came home. So yeah.
So I feel like I don't have a lot more to share because my part after the actual surgery was, I feel like pretty brief. We were only in the hospital for about 24 hours. Susan was with me the whole time. And I really took to heart that the care to my Christ was so amazing. And they really encouraged me to walk as much as I could. And I was like, we're walking laps. We're getting out of here because we have kids to get home to. I have to make sure my family knows like I'm good. So I do think that was a really great motivator for me. But I really did feel fine after a few days. I know that sounds insane, but I think the biggest challenge for me was I couldn't pick up more than 10 pounds for a few weeks, 6 weeks. And, when you have a first grader that's so much you to pick up and a dog, I mean, that was hard. But, our family took a pretty big family vacation at the end of June. So about 6 to 8 weeks later. And I wouldn't have known anything. I was still like walking to the beach, carrying all the beach stuff. So I say this that, Christ was so amazing. They probably asked me no less than 100 times, do you still want to do this? So they gave me every opportunity to make sure like I was good physically, emotionally, mentally. Even the day of surgery, they were wheeling me into the operating room. And someone said, last chance, we can still turn you around. So I felt just as supported as I hope John did as well. But I say like I wouldn't know I actually did anything if I didn't see my scar. Like I really do feel amazing. And I actually stepped out right before we came up because today's our 2-year anniversary, and I got a call from Christ just a few minutes ago, and all my lab work is amazing. And so I just think it sounds crazy, but it's one of the easiest things I've ever done in my whole life. So if you have people who are wondering, are on the fence, or just want some more information, I'm more than happy to share my experience. So I'm very grateful for it.
So I did want to talk a little bit about just sort of like, after that and, up until today. So like, immediately after the surgery, I had, and I guess everybody has that happens to everybody. So I had very frequent like trips back to the transplant clinic. I mean, it started out 3 times a week, and that went for several weeks like that. Like when you're just coming off that kind of surgery, then you have to get up and go and be there at 7 o'clock in the morning. That was a little tough, but it's just you just have to adapt to the routine. But yeah, it was like 3 times a week. Also, like the meds that you have to take, especially in the beginning, is it's kind of a lot. It's a lot of pills. But I remember when I was discharged from the hospital, somebody came in to like walk me through what everything was and how many and when. And I was so glad that Chris was there because my mind was just shot at that point. Like I would have never been able to remember everything. But anyways, you probably know, like they're starting out, you go on like really high doses of like these anti-rejection meds. And then over the next weeks and months, they're trying to slowly reduce that, trying to figure out what's the minimum you can take that will, prevent your body from rejecting the kidney, but also have the least side effects. And that takes some trial and error is what I learned. And it takes a few weeks and months to kind of get through that. But anyways, figured it out. And then over the weeks and months, the number of visits kind of reduced too. So kind of towards the end of that year, that was down to like once a month. But anyways, there were some challenges in the first few months. I had some things from problems with my white blood cell count, red blood cell counts were like doing crazy things. And so they had do a bunch of things, I had to get some injections of things and I kind of overcome that. I also had a couple of viral infections, including parvo, which was weird. Everybody thinks of parvo as a dog disease, well, it turns out there's a human version of it. Who knew? But I mean, that made me feel bad. Like that made my red blood cell count plummet, my hemoglobin, and believe me, when that happens to you, you feel that. Like Chris knows, I laid on the couch for like 3 weeks because I just couldn't, I was so tired, out of breath, dizzy, like all that kind of stuff. So, but anyways, that kind of stuff happens, but, I got through it. Healing from the surgery, I'll talk about that. Like to me, like thinking back, that was the easy part. I was all worried about like an incision and what that was gonna be like, how much was it gonna hurt, how long it's take to heal. Well, in hindsight, I feel like that was kind of the easy part. It really wasn't that bad. I think, about 6 weeks, I was like feeling pretty good. 10, 12 weeks, I was like, yeah, it's, hardly felt anything anymore. So they also like at the hospital, they make you walk the day after, and like every day you're in there and they always advise like walk a lot. So, I tried to do that a lot. I did try to get back to hiking as soon as I could. And even when I wasn't even supposed to be out mingling with people or anything, I was out trying to get back to like some of the parks in our area and get out and walking as much as I could. So that made me feel a lot better. And anyways, well, the other important thing about was that 6 or 8 weeks afterwards, I get a Facebook message from Lindsay saying, hi, John, I wanted to introduce yourself. I'm your donor. Because up until that time, the whole speculation, we were still just going through all that. Who was it? And then I also heard that, some people do just donate completely and honestly, never even want to have. So I was wondering, was that going to be how this is going to go for me? But then I get this message from Lindsay. I actually went back and looked it up yesterday and kind of went all the way back to see, because just to remind myself what that was like, I guess. But anyways, I was just kind of floored because I was getting to the point where I wasn't sure if I would ever know who it was. But then so Lindsay contacted me and so yeah, anyways, yeah. So here we are 2 years later. Anyways, I don't know. That's about it. I can keep talking about this, a lot of stuff forever.
You guys have any questions for John or Lindsay?
Well, that's a good question. It's like every 4 months now. And I'll tell you one thing, when you're used to being in there like frequently, like at least once a month, and like seeing your test result numbers, I get it in like the my chart thing, so I kind of see the test results like almost immediately. And I got used to seeing that. I liked looking like, okay, creatinine is this, okay, that's good, or whatever, and I started learning about a lot of what those things mean. Then after a year, they have you just, you're done, you're discharged from the transplant clinic team. And I think in most people's cases, like me, I went back to my old nephrologist, and at first, the first visit with them, he was like, "Well, yeah, I'll see you again in 4 months." And I was like, 4 months, really? Like, I want to see these numbers more often. You know what I mean? And so he was kind of like, "Oh, okay, 3 months." And then I just saw him again earlier this month. And by the way, everything still looked really good, which I'm really happy about. But this time he said the same thing out 4 months. And I just said, okay, I guess I'll just, if he's okay with that, I guess I should. So, yeah.
Like your aftercare, like medicine and things like that, what was that like for you?
Well, I don't do great on pain medication, so that was really what I had to take. So I took it for like 2 days once I got home, and it made me feel so nauseous that I just stopped taking it. But really I didn't have like any medication. I think there was some to make sure I was going to the bathroom and like all that was fine. But really it was just Tylenol, like extra strength Tylenol.
And how often do you want to?
I did a 6-month follow-up, a year, and then today was my 2-year. And when they called, they're like, you don't have to come back. So yeah, I had to follow up with like my primary care, but like officially I'm like cleared from Christ and the transplant. Yeah, super easy. Super easy on my end.
Yes, you mentioned about the medication being very expensive. Is there any help or did you get any help after you paying for the medication?
On the medications, well, I have Medicare insurance and it's pretty much mostly paid for through that. So I mean, there's like a, deductible, but it's not that much. So for me, it hasn't been a big deal. And also the anti-rejection meds too. If you know much about Medicare, I'm not an expert on it, but the anti-rejection meds fall under Part B of that, which basically pays for, I think, pretty much all of it. Some other things I have to take fall under Part D, which is then, a little different. You may have to pay some for that. But I don't know, it hasn't been a huge cost burden for me right now. So, but
John, isn't it, sorry to interrupt, isn't it if you're a renal patient, you should be on Medicare anyway?
Yeah, anybody that gets a kidney
Right,
is already automatically on Medicare.
And
no matter
dialysis.
what they're doing.
and I. So they'll cover your maintenance.
then I also hit the age of 65 2 months before my transplant. So just by virtue of that, I was able to be on it. I was looking at all this a few months beforehand anyways, and I had heard people say, try not to be in a situation where you're switching insurance in the midst of the whole transplant thing. So even though I'm still working now, I could have stayed on my insurance plan through work. I decided to just make the jump and just sign up for that. So
How low did you do again?
I would say, I think mine was maybe down as low as 14 or something like that. Yeah, I know there's others here. Believe me, I know I've heard from others that it's been lower than that. But yeah, that's just kind of where I was at.
Got a question for Lindsay. After donating and, getting through, the whole family, to accept this, do you think that you changed their minds or are you an advocate, for, just like letting people know, because some people don't want to be a hero.
Right. I actually have some guilt about this. This is actually the first time I've ever spoken about being a kidney donor outside of just like people having to know in my life, like at work. But I've never really told anyone I donated a kidney. So I think from my family's perspective, they're so proud of me, but I still think they're a little bit mad at me on some level too, because, there's risk with surgery and things like that. But this is my second time coming to an off the list meeting. Every time I come, I just feel so inspired. And, I want to help in any way I can. And if that's sharing my story, that's something I have to overcome and like get used to that. But yeah, I don't want to be a hero. And my journey with John is something I really just can't explain. I felt a connection to him, and I really do think it's a lot of how he wrote his story, and I was able to connect with that. So I do think like all the strategies you guys talked about are so dead on, because that's what drew me in when I saw his post.
My donor, was here last week and she was in the same boat. And then I, said, can I put you on Facebook? And so then I think now, and then if you didn't know, her sister then donated her kidney 2 weeks later. Yeah. So it sort of, created, a kind of a domino effect, you know, in that family. So, and so I met her and her sister and then her mom and everybody. So it was pretty cool.
Lindsay, we live in English too, my son is from English. And she would tell anybody, I would do it again if I had another extra week. She said it was so easy. And she had a little trouble with her husband. He was like, I don't understand why you gotta do that. She goes, because I keep getting attacked. She goes, I keep getting attacked by her. So when my husband was out in the waiting area with her husband, Joe was like, he wants no part of me. And I said, well, we get better. Yeah, a year later, he didn't. Yeah. Yeah. So it does, I think once your family sees what you've gone through and how well you're doing, they're like, well, okay, she's okay. You know? So, okay.
I think it was maybe 6 weeks. I think initially I remember they said it would be at least 6 weeks. And I think it was about 6 weeks. I mean, that, you know, they don't want you on any pain. I was on some pain medication for a couple of weeks. You know, I think they want to make sure that, you know, everything was healing up right down here and that, you know, so I'm gonna say, Chris, does that sound right? 6 weeks? If that was something about 6 or 6 to 8. Yeah, because they, you know, I had the same thing, like, don't pick up anything more than 10 pounds, or I think 6 weeks or something like that. So it was 2 weeks for you. It was 6 weeks, yeah. So it was at least 6 weeks. You know, sitting up in bed was hard because if you're laying down, and I learned to get to do this and kind of pull yourself up into your things and you know, you're just I don't have to do that anymore. It's really fun. Numbers to meet somebody's like, oh, wow, that more kind of was significant.
Any other questions for? I think you guys are off the hook. Thank you both. It's an amazing story that it shows people that a complete stranger will donate because they saw a yard sign or read your story on Facebook. So typically, I know everybody is used to ending the seminars with their transplant circles. We're not going to be able to do those tonight because we're kind of limited on time, but that's okay. I want to remind everybody about our upcoming seminars. Thursday, the 21st, we're in Northern Kentucky. We are going to be doing Be an Effective Kidney Donor Champion. So if there's any champions in the room, it's an excellent presentation. We have a guest speaker who was a phenomenal kidney donor champion coming to speak about that role. And then we're back here on June 4th, the first Thursday of June. And that one is on living donation and the paired exchange program. So if you're not familiar with the paired exchange program, it's a great educational seminar. And before we close, if there's mothers in the room, stepmoms, moms of fur babies, you guys deserve to be celebrated this weekend. And I just want to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day.